So I'd like to welcome everyone to Rain and Shine, Reducing the Waste of Water at Camp and Educating Youth to Take Action. This webinar is brought to you by Green Camps Initiative in partnership with Conservation Generation, as well as endorsed by the American Camp Association. So today, our goals for our presentation is to improve the camp community's knowledge of drought and water scarcity, to raise awareness of the benefits to camps of water conservation and efficiency, as well as to educate the camp community about specific ways they can take action. You can see here our presentation for the outline. We'll be talking about the water issue, as well as the relevance to camps and how to take action. We'll do a case study from a camp on camp showers. We'll dive into leaks at camps, and then we'll wrap up with a call to action and discussions as well as question and answer time. So the core part of the presentation will be about 45 minutes long, and we've also allocated about 45 minutes following the presentation for question and answer. Our speakers today include myself. I'm Danny Sudman, founder and managing director of Green Camps Initiative, as well as Adrian Hightower, the education unit manager of Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Avi Janagli, founder and CEO of Conservation Generation, and Seth Herschel, owner and director of Blue Star Camps. You can see our Twitter handles below each of our names here, and we encourage everyone to join in on the conversation by connecting with us on Twitter, as well as Facebook and other social media outlets. We'll be using the hashtag rainANDshine for that. Throughout the presentation, there will be pop-up polls to keep everyone engaged, as well as to share some information about the different parts of our presentation. We encourage everyone to participate. And in just a second, we'll do that first one to see how that works. We also encourage everyone to stick around after the webinar to reply to our 5-minute exit survey. This will help us improve the sustainable camps movement by hearing the feedback from the camp community. We'll also follow up with an email that you'll be able to access the survey following the presentation. All right, so for our first pop-up, we're going to ask, how much water does a typical American use in one day? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this audience poll. So we should start that poll now. So you should see a pop-up that will bring up the 4 answers. You can choose 3 to 10 gallons, 30 to 50 gallons, 80 to 100 gallons, 150 to 200 gallons. You'll click your answer and submit vote. And you'll see that these votes come in automatically. And we'll register that out and see what we get in there. I'm going to give us about 5 more seconds to put those votes in. All right, so we stopped those votes, and we can show our polling came out to 12 with 30 to 50 gallons, 13 80 to 100 gallons, and 1 said 150 to 200 gallons. And we're going to come to that answer, I think, a little bit later. We'll kind of highlight the answer to that answer there. And at this point, I'd like to go ahead and do an introduction. Our first speaker is Adrian Hightower. Dr. Adrian Hightower is an experienced manager, educator, and consultant with expertise with renewable energy and water treatment technologies that address the water energy nexus. Dr. Hightower consults with a number of battery, photovoltaic, and power utility companies. He has managed numerous technical teams in academic and industrial settings. Dr. Hightower has conducted international research and facilitated entrepreneurial activities addressing sustainability, renewable energy, and the water energy nexus. He has published numerous papers in these fields, holds several patents, and has been invited speaker at numerous national and international conferences. Dr. Hightower received his Bachelor of Science, Master's, and PhD from the California Institute of Technology and is currently representing the Metropolitan Water District. So Adrian, if you'd like to go ahead and join us in, and thank you for your presentation and time today.
Great. Thank you, Danny. Can everybody hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Sounds good. We got you.
Good. So my job is to introduce you to the Metropolitan Water District and some of the issues that we are facing, particularly with climate change and the drought, and how these issues affect not only our customers but campers as well. So you can see more information on our conservation measures at bewaterwise.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter. So to give you a brief overview, Metropolitan Water District is one of the largest water agencies in the country, servicing 19 million people, and essentially we're the wholesaler for water in Southern California. We bring water from the north and east to serve a 5,200 square mile service area. That includes 6 counties. This is done in partnerships with 26 member agencies, so we're run by a board. And the most important thing to appreciate is because these member agencies span 6 different counties, everyone has different water needs, different water supplies, different water issues, more or less agriculture, more or less recreation. And none of these goals can be achieved unless there is cooperation. So it's really an amazing thing to appreciate that if each one of these member agencies did their own thing or just followed their own bottom line, our water system would not work. Its basic tenet is cooperation. And so where Metropolitan is the importer of water, we rely on our member agencies to supply it to your home. So Metropolitan sells the water to anyone you pay your bills to in Southern California. Okay, so my role as education manager is we try to get people critically thinking about water, particularly targeting students and teachers, and we do this with a variety of activities. We have art programs, we have curriculum tied to standards. That curriculum is available for free for folks in our service area. We also, interestingly enough, hold the largest solar boat competition in the country. This is our Solar Cup program, so you'll see one of the photos in the center of the slide. And these are where high school students take canoes, they put holes in perfectly good canoes, and then they add solar panels and batteries. So if at your camps, if you ever want to electrify or solarify your canoes, we can certainly help you in that. In addition to that, we teach students about conservation measures, and on the lower left, you'll see an example of a rain barrel. And rain barrels are wonderful ways of teaching water conservation as well as conserving rainwater. Good. To give you an overview and a perspective of where your water comes from, we're going to give you a quick rundown on runoff. And runoff is a combination of 2 things, rainfall and snowpack. And in the case of a drought, or in the case of climate change, which affects everyone throughout the country and the world, those 2 forms of precipitation are heavily impacted. In California, we're having significant issues with a lack of precipitation, both rainfall and snowpack. I mentioned Metropolitan imports the water to Southern California, and essentially we import it from Northern California in the Northern Sierras, and we also import it from the Colorado River and the Colorado River Basin. Here you'll see a blue line associated with the California Aqueduct, and if you're ever in California, if you drive on the 5 freeway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, you're driving next to that aqueduct. If you're ever driving down the 10 freeway on the way to Arizona, you're driving next to that Colorado River Aqueduct. So we bring water from far to a local service area. All right. Let me go back. That Northern Sierra and the upper part of the California and that upper Colorado River Basin, those are our watersheds. That's where we get our water from. And the snowpack there is important. And that's precisely what's being impacted by the drought. So in this slide, you'll see the blackened area highlighting where our water comes from Colorado. That is moderately impacted by the drought. But in California, in the white highlighted area, you'll see that same space significantly highlighted by the drought. Now, this is a drought monitor map that changes daily, really. And this is a most recent one from 2015. But the important thing to appreciate is this drought for California has been going on for the past 4 years. Okay, so we see that we're being impacted by the drought. What does that mean for us? If you look at the previous slide, here we see water from the Northern Sierra going into what we call Lake Oroville. So the water melts slowly, the snowpack melts, goes into that Lake Oroville. As we go forward, These are pictures of Lake Oroville. The upper picture is from 2012, which was a drought year, and the one on the bottom is for 2013, which is a severe drought year. So we've been in a drought for 4 years, but the magnitude has increased and its sustained impact has increased. This is Lake Oroville, where a significant amount of our water comes from, and this is another picture of Lake Oroville, that same slide. So the drought is real, and even though we have the infrastructure to provide water, we are limited by the amount of water that we have, which is shared by not only urban settings, environmental settings, agriculture, so there's a lot to take into account. This is one more that really drives home the message. This is the Phillips Snow Course in the Northern Sierras where we were just looking. This is the snowpack prior to the drought, and you can see the top of this pole being used. If we look again now at 2015, most recently, we can't even see the top of that pole. We should really have a significant snowpack by April. But the little snow that we had has run off. So we are really changing the way that we think about water and deliver water to Southern California. Okay. So with that being said, even though we've been focusing on Southern California, this is a nationally broadcast webinar, and the impacts of climate and our utilization has national and global effects. This is a NASA map indicating wetness and particularly associated with the groundwater. And we can see significant decreases with our groundwater. Actually, I'm sorry, this measures wetness, so this is similar to the drought monitor. But the important thing to appreciate is that we have significant variations throughout the country. So wherever you are probably impacted to some extent by climate change, and that is therefore impacting your utilization of water. In California, we have less precipitation, these reduced snowpacks, we have reduced runoff, and that reduced runoff has depleted our ability to recharge our groundwater. So people who are traditionally relying on pumps are having a harder and harder time to utilize that pumps. This is particularly the case in the San Joaquin Valley, which is really the center part of California, where a tremendous amount of our agriculture comes from, not only for national, but is exported as well. Those groundwater levels have been significantly decreased. And this is going to be more important for camps. Not only has our groundwater been decreased, but our lakes, which serve as our water storage, our drinking water, have also been significantly decreased. Before we bring it back to camps, we'll go on a global scale. If we think of this globally, we can look at the change of runoff over approximately the last 50 years. And you can see that there are significant deviations, particularly as we look in the United States between the West Coast and the East Coast. In the West Coast, we have traditionally had, in the last 4 years, a significant decrease in drought. But over the past 50 years, we've had a decrease in runoff. And runoff is associated not only with climate change, but also with the amount of precipitation, the temperatures within the air, within the atmosphere. And so this issue is a global one. If we bring it back closer to home and how this impacts camps, I mentioned that in Southern California, we bring the water from Northern California into Arizona. Well, along the way, before it gets to our users, before it gets to your houses or your schools, it is diverted into reservoirs, these lakes. And these lakes serve as our storage capacity for water, so that in dry years we can utilize this water. Well, these lakes also serve as recreation, and depending where your camp is, there's a good chance you might have an outing or have some utilization of these lakes, certainly these rivers and streams. But one of these things you can see is this is, I think, yesterday's report from midnight. We were up late. But you can see our current storage levels for Diamond Valley Lake, which is a total capacity of 810,000 acre-feet. So I'm looking at the lower left corner. It says Diamond Valley Lake. That's really our largest water reservoir, and that is 50% full. It's 50% full or 48% full because for the past 3 years we have been systematically calling on our storage. to compensate for the lack of water that we've gotten associated with the drought. With Lake Skinner, we're at 74% full. Lake Matthews is 39% full. So there's a good chance if your camp is near some water source and you do recreation that you can visibly see this impact and pass that along to your campers. One of the ways that we typically explain drought and our water issues is to talk about the water cycle. And we have a material for campers in Southern California available for free, and we also are happy to do demonstrations. But the idea is that the water cycle is a circular cycle that is based on gravity and energy from the sun. We get evaporation, the moisture condenses in our atmosphere. Eventually it condenses to a point where we get precipitation, different types of precipitation, whether it's rain or snow or sleet or hail or even dew is considered precipitation. That precipitation eventually turns into runoff that goes into our streams or refills our aquifers or is stored in our lakes, and then it eventually returns to the ocean and the cycle completes itself. Well, this drought is really two-thirds of that equation, where we have significant evaporation. And if you want a fancy word for evaporation from plants, you see the evapotranspiration. But what we don't get is precipitation, and campers and students usually get that in terms of the whole cycle and its connection to our natural world. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce our next pop-up poll. And according to an ACA March 2014 survey, what percentage of camp owners, directors, were concerned or very concerned about not wasting water in their camp? Is it 12%, 45%, 67%, or 95%? And I'd like to highlight that wherever you are, many of your water agencies will have incentives or rebates to help you conserve, whether it's improving your infrastructure, and that's something we can all appreciate, or whether it's giving you material to teach your campers about. There's a support for that. And if you're in Southern California, you know who to call, Metropolitan Water District or your local water agency. Cool.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to follow up from our last poll, and the first one, how much tap water does a typical American use in one day? And the answer to that was 80 to 100 gallons. So really good, knowledge is power, as they say, to understand what our usage is. I'm going to give Adrian a second. It sounded like he had one more thing to share, and then we'll pass it over to Avi to answer the most recent poll about the percentage results from camp directors and owners. So, Adrian, anything left to add?
No, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions or if we can support you, if you're in Southern California, let us know. You can reach us at bewaterwise.com for rebates, including landscaping, as well as water-efficient appliances. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So our results for the camp directors' concern about water waste, 4 said 12%, 8 at 45%, 11 at 67%, and 5 at the 95%. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Avi, and Avi will give us an answer and let us know how that came out.
The answer is 95% of camp owner directors are concerned or very concerned about not wasting water at camp. That was according to an ACA poll, which was taken in March 2014. You can see some other amazing statistics which come up, which show how much camp is a place, is a treat, to start teaching our campers to care about the environment. My old camp director, and I must admit to being a campaholic, I spent 20 years working at Blue Star from the age of 19 right up to going there with my own kids as a Team Village camp leader. But my old camp director used to say something really interesting. He used to say that the world we build tomorrow is born in the experiences we give our children today. And why camp is a great place for water stewardship is because camp is a microcosm for the world. You are all involved with camp, and really what camp does is it is a teaching place, a launching pad, if you like, to show kids how to interact with one another, with the world around them. And what camp does is it creates its own little world. Every summer we come together and we create our own little world. And often the world that we create every summer is a lot better than the world outside, because the currency of camp, the currency that you want from your staff, the currency that you give, the currency that you want from your campus is not the currency of money. The currency is a currency of love. The currency is one of giving. And that is a tremendously important factor in our environment, in our world, because if we can teach kids to care about one another, we can also teach kids to care about the environment. And that's really, really important. Sorry, I'm just going to turn my phone off. Should have done that before. That's really, really important. Getting on, we find that 98% of camp staff and counsellors think camp is a great place to teach environmental stewardship. 97% of parents agree camp is a place to teach children and teens about water conservation. And even 62% of campers said yes to water saving and other environmental activities at camp next year. So that was all really, really interesting. I've talked a little bit about why I think we can, why I'm very idealistic about how camp changes the world, but there are some other benefits to camp directors and camps. So, for example, if we can use less energy and less water, we can actually save on our bills. Not only that, we can actually do it in such a way that it enhances camp experience. At my camp in particular, there was always a problem on Saturday night or Friday night, which is the big social was Saturday night, and it was Shabbat services on Friday. There was always a problem with the older camps running out of hot water as the young camps showered. Now, in actual fact, if you're clever and you use low-flow shower heads, which we actually did this time around, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I know Seth's going to talk a little bit about that. We were actually able to make sure that everybody had hot water. It also meant that when you target certain behavior changes, I was talking to a few camp directors way back when dinosaurs still stalked Blue Star, and they were telling me about some of the amazing things that turned up, which kids had flushed down the toilet. If we can actually teach our kids not to shove trash down the toilet, etc., it actually will improve the running costs of camp. But mostly importantly, as I said, what I feel it does is it builds community, because kids take camp home. Camp, as you all know, is like doggy years. You know, what happens at camp, 4 weeks at camp is like 2 years in the outside world. So habits that are formed at camp, friendships that are formed at camp, experiences that are formed at camp last forever, literally. The other thing it does is it's fantastic to show what you guys have achieved. We had mayoral recognition. The mayor of Hendersonville went and visited one of the camps that participated in our program and was just really, really impressed, and is actually one of the ripples that was caused by that is actually going to introduce some water saving into the wider community at large. A little bit more about that later. Okay, next slide. So what we wanted to do for a campaign to really work in the outside world and at camp, we need to involve absolutely everybody. That's camp owners and directors, camp staff and counsellors, parents, the campers themselves, and maybe bringing a few specialist partners and providers. That creates your virtuous circle. So how do we do that? How do we get that multi-touch point campaign going? How do we do that? Okay, so first thing is, let's start small. Let's keep it really, really simple. Let's set our goals really early. So start building up, and mostly importantly, let's get staff and counsellor buy-in. Make it part of staff training. Get the staff themselves involved. Send out emails beforehand asking what staff would like to see? How can staff can they bring maybe an idea with regard to, instead of cabin cleanup, cabin green up? What ways could you use, which are traditional ways that you train your staff? Can you incorporate elements of environmental stewardship into that? And shout about what you're doing, because parents love to know what's going to happen at camp. So, if you're going to theme a special day at camp, maybe go for a meatless Monday fun day, let people know about it. And the other thing that is quite surprising is at camp we all tend to operate in our own little bubble of tradition, but there are a lot of resources that are actually available to us from other camps and from partners, and even from utilities. So let's talk a little bit about how we can put these into practice. You can do an audit yourself about what you can do on camp. You can. Seth is going to talk a little bit about how he checked the flow of his showers, and how he checked the flow of his the flow of his taps, of his faucets. You can look at faucet inserts, shower heads, toilet replacements, check for leaks. I know Danny's going to be diving right into that. A pool cover, rainwater harvesting. Adrian mentioned that, and we can talk a little bit about some of the competitions that we instituted. For instance, rain barrel decoration became really, really big. We're going to see some examples of that. Rebates. We actually approached Duke Power, who actually, Seth's going to tell you all about that, but actually Blue Star managed to get a whole raft of stuff like shower heads and aerators free from Duke Power. And strangely enough, when I spoke to the Duke Power guy, he was absolutely bowled over that someone at last, a camp, had actually used the rebate, because this rebate had been in existence for about 2 years and no camp institution had actually used it. And that's kind of quite scary, because there are a lot of free resources out there which are available, but which we're just not aware of. We also, as I said, wanted to keep it simple. So here are some options that are easily understandable and easily achievable. Shower shorter, save water. Stop the gush when you brush. That's turn off the tap when you're brushing your teeth. 3 Ps in the toilet, poop, pee, paper. There is a 4th P, of course, which is puke, but that's only when councils have had an excessive night out, I suppose. Reusing towels. One of my favourites. Kids, as we all know, tend to shower, and instead of hanging that towel, they drop that towel on the floor. Rainwater. Again, we're going to talk about how to collect rainwater. Leaks. Encourage your staff to report on leaks. And pledges. Kids will take pledges, but they will only take those pledges if we can reinforce that behaviour consistently at camp. So actually, going on from that, it's not a one-hit wonder. We have to do quite a lot. We're very good at understanding concepts as people. We're less good at actually taking action ourselves. And that's what we mean by cognitive misers. We can understand concepts, we don't necessarily take the action needed. So we need to be motivated. We need to be self-motivated, and we need to do it from a positive point of view. It's no good, standing over kids and telling them that if they don't look after the planet, we're all going to die. That really doesn't work. If we can do it in a positive way, it's far, far better. So, as I said, small goals, coupled with practical actions, and also connecting it with the traditions and the beliefs and the values of camp, making it normal. We did that quite consistently, both at Blue Star and at Judea, when we harnessed the traditional values of camp with environmental stewardship, with saving water. We connected the kids very much themselves. So Seth will talk about stickers that were put up, but the kids themselves put up those stickers. We made behavior change part of behavior change. We incorporated it into treasure hunts. So the camp tradition is absolutely vital, and you guys are the experts in your camp tradition. Every camp's traditions are obviously different, but some of the ones that we did, which we found very successful, were cabin green up, color war. We introduced environmental stewardship into color war. So for the murals that were made, we had a theme, if you like, that was environmental stewardship or water related. We encouraged the kids by using Blue Star bucks were given out to cabins that made an effort with regard to saving water. We did one of the things that we're going to introduce is howl at the towel. That's getting the kids literally to howl when a towel is dropped. Green hook. At Judea, they're putting up green hooks to encourage the kids to actually hang their towels when they finish their shower, as opposed to dumping them on the floor. Posters were put up all over camp. A lot of them were designed by the kids themselves. Rain barrels you'll see some examples of some beautiful rain barrels that the kids decorated. And it was amazing to see some of the artwork that the kids came up with. The kids also created pottery chains, rain chains. The kids also, in their photography option, the kids did some fantastic photography. We called it PH2O, photo competitions, etc. We also used trump cards, which is a bit like war, your game of war, but connected with water. And there were 32 ways to save energy and water. And the kids, actually, it became a bit of a craze. The kids played that, especially on rainy days. Introducing themes is also fun. So no meat Monday fun day. It's kind of scary to think there are about 635 gallons of water, embedded water in a burger. But that is actually what it is. So just by going meatless on Monday, or whichever day you choose, you can actually work out how many gallons of water you're actually saving. It's kind of quite cool to do that. So also spreading the word. We found that our camps were able to use what they were doing, the good that they were doing, in social media. We've also found that they're now talking about inter-camp competitions. That's, for instance, a rain barrel competition. Who can design and create the most beautiful rain barrel as a work of art. Knowledge sharing, swapping what one camp did successfully with another, and continuing the tradition. In other words, as I said, it's not a one-hit wonder, a day program, or just a summer program. It becomes part of the tradition. So building what you did last year and using it as a springboard for next year. So that brings me to my pop-up poll. So according to WaterSense, if every home in the US installed water-efficient shower heads, we could save how much money in water and energy bills? Is it 1 million in water and 2 million in energy, 2.2 billion in water and 2.6 billion in energy, 1.5 million in water and $0 in energy, or 1.5 million in water and 2 billion in energy? The vote is yours. Okay. And now over to my mate, Danny.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Avi. Appreciate. We see that there's a lot of great solutions, and we can see how they're all very applicable to the camp community. And I hope that through this webinar and through other resources, you can find solutions that are fitting with your camp. As our results come in, it looks like we're at about 67% with 2.2 billion in water, 2.6 billion in energy, followed by 1.5 billion in water, 2 billion in energy at about 20%, with the others with some smaller percentages there. So the correct answer is that 2.2 billion in water and 2.6 billion in energy, excuse me, simply by installing water efficient shower heads. So again, there we go. There's another example of a sustainable water efficient initiative that we can implement into our programs there. So at this point, let's see, is Seth, are you on the line with us? So Seth is the director at Blue Star Camps and participated in the Conservation Generation program this past summer. He's going to share some information about a case study for efficient shower heads and shower timers. And so maybe if Seth is having a problem logging in, Avi, could you join us again? Maybe you could just touch base on that since you were involved in that project as well, but we can still wait for Seth for a second. All right, so we can just highlight a little bit. You know, we've mentioned, here we have Avi again. Avi, do you want to talk about showers, case studies at Blue Star camps?
Yeah, I'm afraid you guys will have to put up with... wait, is that Seth? Hello, Seth? Okay, all right, here goes. Shower case study at Blue Star. Sorry, guys, you're going to have to put up with the English accent yet again. We chose to really go into use the one behavior change to concentrate on shower shorter, save water. That was one of the three that we concentrated on. And we did that. The first thing we did is we did a self-audit. We went round the camp and we actually measured the flow of the shower heads. And a way to do that very simply was to get a flow bag, run the water for 5 seconds, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it would be able to tell you whether you had a high flow shower of about 2.5 gallons or whether it was a good low flow shower, 1.5 gallons. Seth, you can take over with pleasure. Seth's there. Seth, all yours.
Trouble unmuting my mic. Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. Thanks, Seth. Thanks for coming in there.
Yeah, sorry. I've been trying for a while. I had this all prepped, and then there went technology. Thank you to Joanne, who's behind the scenes with Conservation Generation. She was private texting me to help me get going there. Sorry, everybody. I'll shorten my time. A major thanks to Danny and Green Camps Initiative for creating this space and just really doing forward-looking and incredible work on behalf of summer camps, and sort of finally, in my opinion, helping us really, take the next level step, being more sustainable, ecologically, environmentally conscious. And of course, a big thanks to my very good friend and mentor, Avi, and his team at Conservation Generation, who really made it possible for my wife and co-owner director of Blue Star, Lauren, and I to pull off this program. So just really quickly, Avi has really said a lot, or given the outline of the work that Conservation Generation did with us at Blue Star camps this past summer, and that we'll be continuing to build on this next summer. But I'll just give you a camp director perspective. Basically, Blue Star, as with many camps, and certainly folks who are signed on here to this webinar, there's a social justice kind of a community service ethic ethos at our camp that Lauren and I has been passed down to us over 2 generations. Us now we being the third, and so the environment and our planet is where we want to focus our attention and our campers and staff. So that's how we got partnered up with Conservation Generation and Green Camps Initiative. The major focus being water. It was just an easy, simple, in our face. Every human being, every member of our community takes showers and uses water. So it was an easy place for us to start. So I'll just highlight sort of 2 things we did, give some quick results, and then just say in general, I'd love to talk to other camp directors after this, for any kind of insight that I can provide, again, from the ground level in this work. So hardware, which not my favorite, but is important. Our caretaker and his maintenance crew kind of checked all of our different types of shower heads, from camper cabins to senior staff cabins, and got all that info to Conservation Generation, to Avi and his team. And basically we were able to, through a North Carolina state program with Duke Energy, Duke Power, participate in this rebate program. As a camp director, why I loved it, Avi and his team did all the work. I just had to kind of sign signatures, but they really did all the grant writing. And essentially, we got shipped to us shower heads to replace every single one on camp, including Lauren and mine. And the water flow for sort of, techie folks. We went from 2 to 2.5 gallons per minute to 1.5 gallon per minute shower head. So if you just multiply that by 125 cabins that we have, the savings, it adds up very quickly. Not only in terms of saving water, to the tune of roughly 250,000 gallons of water over the summer. These are rough estimates with a lot of research that was put into that. Translating to over 40,000 pounds of CO2. But we also, bottom line, our water bills went down approx 5%, just from one summer. Not only from the shower heads, but also, as Avi mentioned, we did some work with our sink aerators to reduce flow there, and then our behavior change program. So the programming work or the software that we did, the work with our campers and staff. So I'll just hit that really quickly. In addition to lots of signage that the campers actually helped put up, really catchy, kitschy stuff, great logos, just great, simple, short messages. And it was literally in every bathroom, by the sinks, by the showers, and campers physically put it up, younger campers, older campers. So they're sort of participating, and then it's right there all summer as reminders to shower shorter, et cetera. And then sort of a lot of our key staff who kind of get there earlier to get them into it, they actually went around and did sort of the work of replacing the shower heads. And while that might not sound sexy or exciting, it really helped a lot of our folks who might have been even skeptical about it feel, wow, camp is doing something. I'm now doing something about it. And then it kind of helps create that, that cycle of the staff passing it down and reminding campers throughout the summer. So it eventually kind of sticks, which I think did start to happen over the course of the summer. And then with Conservation Generation, providing program books and ideas and guides and all kinds of stuff, we were able to make it fun. So different competitions in our color war specifically, shower competitions, obviously with campers' bathing suits on when they're done with their relay race by the pool, the outdoor showers, really easy, using the shower timers, again, provided by Conservation Generation. All the stuff is really user-friendly, really catchy for campers, and staff loved having some of the stuff too. And we really were just relentless, Lauren and I and our sort of core leadership team, of making Conservation Generation and water saving behavior our focus. So we really incorporated it in sort of camp-wide campfire type events as our, with messaging, and really worked it in throughout so that it stuck. And again, we're going to continue this next summer so that eventually just becomes part of our culture. So I think I'll stop there. Again, sorry for the technical difficulty. That's totally my fault at the beginning. A hearty, happy Earth Day to all my fellow Earthlings and good people on here. And again, be happy to talk later for anybody who wants to email me or whatever for a follow-up from a camp director perspective. Back to you, Danny.
Great. Thank you so much, Seth. We do appreciate you providing that camp director perspective. It's always good to have that inside perspective. And we will have an opportunity towards the end of the webinar here for follow-up questions for myself, for Adrian, Avi, and Seth as well. So please stick around for that part of it. So we're going to go ahead to the next slide here. And our next question poll here is looking at a leaky faucet. So if a faucet is dripping once per second, how many showers does that equal over the course of a year? So over the course of a year, if a faucet drips once per second, how much water equivalency to a shower is that going to equal? So our answers are 300 showers, 180 showers, 65 showers, or 10 showers. Looks like 300 and 180 are coming in pretty close. Pretty fun to watch this kind of move back and forth. So we're going to go ahead and stop the polling right there. And so we have about 58%, 58% with the 300 showers, 38 for 180, 3% said 65, and no one said 10. The correct answer is actually 180 showers. So we can see that really adds up with those leaks as they come through there. And so great transition into the subject of leaks. So, there are ways that we can implement practices and policies to reduce our overall water consumption, but really leaks are a great way to start, especially when we look at the camp facilities and infrastructures, which are typically pretty old and dated. And so this is a great place to start. So we're going to talk about some leak facts and statistics, reading our meter bills, checking for toilets and faucets. And so to define a leak, we're basically looking at water that's wasted with no intended use or purpose. Once we identify a leak, they should be the first area to target from a water management perspective. And the benefits of addressing our leaks are we're going to save money, save water, save time, and expenses that would otherwise be associated with unmanaged leaks. So according to the U.S. EPA, on average, leaks can cause almost 10,000 gallons of wastage in a home every year, and this amount is sufficient to fill a swimming pool. It's nice to have those visual perspective of what those statistics look like. Numbers can really only go so far, so having an image supplied next to that is pretty helpful. So our most common issues of leakage are dripping faucets, leakage in toilet flappers, or leaking valves, and all of which can be easily fixed. And with the dripping faucet, which we talked about previously, fixing that can save almost 10% of a homeowner's water bill. So we can see that there's environmental as well as economic incentives for following through with these. So we'll start with reading the meter bill. Now, a lot of utilities are moving to digital meters, similar to our energy meters that are going to be read digitally, and you don't have to have a meter maid coming out to actually read it. But good just to understand the general idea of what a meter looks like and how we can gather that information. So the first arrow points down to the dial. The dial rotates when water passes through the meter. One full rotation equals 1 cubic feet of water, or 7.48 gallons. The next is the low flow indicator, and we can see that the little red one, the next arrow there. And this low flow indicator rotates with with very little water movement. So any water moving through the meter is detected, so even small leaks will register. And then finally is the odometer, similar to what we see on the car. The water meter odometer records water use in cubic feet and displays as follows. The digits from right to left represent 1, 10, and 100 cubic feet, and so on and so forth. And so like a car, the water meter odometer cannot be altered. And so this is how we're able to gather data about our water usage. So what do we do with this? So if you're looking at a meter, one way to kind of estimate our water usage is to read the odometer and write it down completely and write down the date that you read it on. After a period of about a week or 7 days, read the odometer again, write the date down, and then to figure out what your water usage in that time is, subtract the first from the second reading, and this is your water use in cubic feet during that period. If you multiply that by 7.48, you'll figure out the gallons used during that period. And then finally, if you divide the water used in gallons by the number of days between the reading, you'll get your average gallons per day during the period. So the benefit of being able to read our meters is as we go in and we implement changes, so whether we're fixing those leaks, whether we're putting low flow shower heads, or any other number of water saving, water efficient devices, we can start to quantify the change that we see by implementing those new initiatives there. So other ways to watch for leaks, if you turn off all indoor and outdoor water sources, then you can go to the meter and look at that low flow indicator. If it moves, this may mean that a leak is indicated in an appliance or a pipe. If the meter shows no obvious movement, then it's a good chance there is not a leak, but you could also return a little bit later and see if there's any change. And so basically you're closing off all your water. If there is a leak, that water main is going to let more water in to fill that back in again. So that's a way that we can use our meters there. So the flapper valve is a very common issue with toilets, and it's causing leaks that we might not be aware of. And so in the diagram to the right, you can see the blue flapper there. So just to give us a little kind of up close and personal with the innards of a toilet there, if that flapper is old or is hardened or has leaks or corrosion or anything that's allowing water to escape through there, that water is going to escape into the bowl. and then your fill valve is going to automatically fill that water up again. So one way to test to see if that flapper the seal is good on it is to squeeze a few drops of food coloring into the bowl, and then wait approximately 15 to 25 minutes, and then look into the bowl. If you look in the bowl and you see no color in there, then your flapper is good. If you see color in there, that means that there's a leak in there. And then you can alert your maintenance or support staff to inspect it and see if it needs to be replaced. Just a simple, easy activity that we can do. And again, it might not be, as Avi said, it might not be a sexy thing, or I think Seth mentioned as well, changing out the low-flow shower heads, but it really does connect our campers with what we're doing and understanding the impact of this. And maybe they'll take these ideas back to their home communities and implement them there. And so we'll also look at faucets. So faucets was another high area of water leakage. And here we see the sink faucet, a diagram there. And there's several different areas that can cause that faucet to leak. And, we're not all plumbers, and that's okay. And so one thing that I really recommend, and I think Avi and Seth both touched on, is the importance of signage. Signage can be a really good way to communicate information to our visitors and guests and campers and staff. And so put up a simple report all leaks immediately sign. The sooner a leak is identified and fixed, the less water is going to be wasted. And then also making sure that you have a system within your maintenance plan to make sure that those leaks are addressed in a quick manner there. All right. And so for our final poll, we'd like to encourage everyone to participate in making a pledge. So we'd like to ask, would you commit, or do you commit to taking at least one action this summer to save water? And so your answers can be yes, maybe, and no. All right, so we're getting our poll results in there. And it looks like everyone has said yes, and that's kind of what we were hoping for after sharing this information with everyone. So thanks for participating in that. We'll close that poll up there. And so as we begin to wrap here, kind of reflecting on that poll, there are a lot of things that we can do. And at first it might seem a little overwhelming for all the potential ways that we can reduce our water conservation. In general, when looking at sustainable development in the camp community, there are a lot of different areas that we can approach. And I'm excited to have partnered with Conservation Generation, who has done a great push for water conservation this summer, and we'll also be looking forward into energy conservation as well. But right now, for Earth Day 2015, we want to do a call to action and encourage everyone to take a pledge. Now, these are voluntary pledges. In the exit survey, you'll have an opportunity to select one or more of the following, as well as come up with your own. And some of the suggestion ones that we've put together are to look up rebates and incentives from your local utilities to see what different things you can put in and those utilities offer, fixing leaks that we talked about, implementing water-wise behavior change, so doing activities and other ideas to bring water behavior change into your staff and campers over the summer, water efficiency activities, and then as well an audit. And so whether you do a self-audit, there's some great tools out there, or bring in an organization like Green Camps Initiative or other organizations to come in and do an audit. I know a lot of utilities also can offer those audits, and by doing an audit, understanding where your current practices lie and areas for improvement and development. So finally, our organizations, Green Camps Initiative and Conservation Generation, have been working together in communication for about a year now, and trying to figure out, how what we bring to the table can benefit the camp community in general. So we have some short excerpts about what our organizations do, and we'll follow up with some additional information about both of our organizations. Some short a little bit of information right there for you. But at this point, I'd like to go ahead and wrap up the presentation part of this webinar and transition into a Q&A. So in the Q&A, we'd like to, again, remind everyone, please do participate in that 5-minute exit survey. If you do exit the webinar prior, you'll receive a follow-up email to participate in that. And that exit survey will help us understand how to best serve the camp community with these type resources. If you have any questions right now, please use the webinar, the chat box, and you can enter questions in there. And you can also send emails to Danny@greencampsinitiative.org or Joanne@conservationgeneration.com as well now, as well as following. So we'd like to go ahead and open up these questions for everyone, and please feel free to join in that conversation. And again, the presenters were myself, Danny Sutman of Green Camps Initiative, Avi of Conservation Generation, Seth from Blue Star Camps, and Adrian from the Metropolitan Water District.
Yeah, hi. Deborah's asked what type of faucets you recommend at sinks. I would. Sorry, hello.
Oh, please go ahead, Avi.
Yeah, I would. It depends where actually. If you're in a kitchen, you actually want a decent flow, because if you're filling a kettle or a pot or whatever, so you really want a flow of round about 2 gallons per minute. But if you're in, if you're at the basin, you really want a flow that's far, far less. You can go down to 0.5 of a gallon, even. Blue Star went from memory, Blue Star went down to about, I think, 0.5 of a gallon at their faucets.
That's a great response. And,
hello,
yeah,
this is, to add to that remark regarding the faucets, we didn't talk a lot about water quality in terms of things that we can do locally. Your water is usually tested about 300,000 times a day by your water utilities. But that doesn't prevent water contamination locally at the point of use, particularly if you have dated infrastructures. Prior to 1936, lead was used in pipes. Prior to 1986, lead was used in solder for pipes. So things that you can do associated with faucets are regular maintenance in terms of cleaning, disinfection, and in terms of the aerators, which we generally recommend, you want to clean those as well, because that's areas where debris can sometimes build, just like any other faucet.
Wonderful. Thanks for those answers there. So we had, let's see, a few other questions where can we find posters and stickers about water savings to put up around camp?
This is Adrian again from Metropolitan. We have some material available in Southern California for free. We also have some PDFs. So I'll put a website in the chat room for folks in Southern California. We can mail those to you, but you could also download the PDFs that may be helpful.
Great.
Wonderful. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just saying we have some more questions coming in. Did you want to add on to that response, Avi?
One of the things that you could also do is actually get campers to create their own artwork and stickers, which is a lot of fun, and then make some kind of a big competition out of it as well. You don't have to, sometimes when a kid does a sticker as part of an art project, they'll learn something and they'll take it home in a way that they wouldn't if it's just a sticker that comes from, us or a utility.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love bringing in the campers into making that signage. You can probably find more traditional signage, but to be able to develop it and have your campers involved in it, I think really it expands that buy-in there.
We also, part of what we also did was we actually produced 12 or 13 calls to action or stickers. And one of the ways that you can use those stickers is actually by a treasure hunt. And at each station, if you like, you actually have to do some kind of activity that actually reflects that behavior change. We produced actually a little booklet of programs, evening programs and twilight programs that can be played and put into use. Everything from eco singled out for the older kids to water detective to trash art. There are about 30 odd programs that we produced.
Great. So going back a little bit in the conversation, someone asked, did Blue Star get a grant for shower heads and from whom? And Joanne answered within the text box that Blue Star applied for rebates from from Duke Power with Conservation Generation's help. Check your local water and energy utilities, and Conservation Generation is a good resource for researching those rebates. The other part to add to that is doing that audit, and Green Camps Initiative does on-site audits to help understand what areas of development, whether it's water or energy conservation, would most benefit from researching those rebates and changing those things out. So let's see. There was a question about getting the shower shorter sign the previous slide showed. I know that was previous on. I'll see if I can go back through this presentation and find that. So getting the shower shorter sign showed. So I'll reach back through here. Let me get another question of why we do that. Deborah Jameson said the health department in your local area may have stickers. So here's questions about the canoe solar idea. I'd like more information about the canoe solar idea. Adrian, was that you who had talked about that?
That's correct. So I'll put a link to our website. It's called the Solar Cup Program. We start with a standard 15-foot canoe that's essentially designed by the Boy Scouts. It really wasn't designed to be electrified, but we do it anyway. Then we add about 320 watts of solar panels. We add simple DC DC motors, and usually two lead-acid batteries, each 12 volts. You can do it with a car battery, but marine batteries are better. And we race those around our lake. We use Lake Skinner in Temecula. There's an endurance race and a sprint race. And so it really gets people thinking about water and energy. And as I mentioned, those lakes are what we drink our water from. So you get the choice of whether you want gasoline and oil leaking into your lakes that you drink, or if you want an electric vehicle. And the last thing is that the same technologies that are used in these electric boats are the same technologies that are used in your electric cars. They both have motor controllers, they both have throttle controls, and so we have a really comprehensive technical manual that's available online. So I'll put that website that includes some videos of our boats in the chat mailbox.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Adrian. So we had a question, will a recording be available? And yes, this webinar is being recorded, and following once it's processed, we'll post the entire webinar, but I'm also going to cut it down by sections as well, so we can have shorter little video segments for each section. So you will be able to view the whole thing or by different components of it as well. So here's a question. How do you use the rainwater collection barrels? Is Seth still with us?
I think he might have disappeared.
Okay. So the rainwater collection barrels, Avi, do you want to speak about your experience with those?
What we did is we found some old barrels, literally, old plastic barrels actually, and we did a little bit of research about how best to paint them, which we actually circulated, and the camps did an amazing job at taking those rain barrels, and the senior girls, I think, who were about 13 to 15, did them as part of some of their projects, and basically ran them from the gutter, collected water from the gutter, which ran into the rain barrel, and they used that water to feed. Camp created a living wall, and that water, which was collected, rainwater, which was collected to feed that living wall. It's sort of beautiful because it's literally living art. Art is life, and it really worked well. They also did the Holy Barrel competition, which was quite fun as well as part of Color War. So the barrels actually were used quite a bit. Barrels were quite central to camp art life last summer, and this summer, they've actually got about 7 other camps involved with regard to rain barrels, and they're going to each camp will create their own rain barrel artwork, and then those rain barrels will probably be exhibited in Hendersonville along Main Street. Which is, if you like, one of the ripples from camp going out into the larger world. What Bluester have done during the winter is literally put those rain barrels away, store them, and then they'll bring them out again in the summer. But we will make available how the little video on how to paint a rain barrel and decorate a rain barrel.
Great. Thanks so much, Avi. And I'll add to that as well. As we look at the many different sustainable initiatives, rainwater catchment is one that Green Camps Initiative has expanded those resources out to. Most of the resources that GCI gathers there's a lot of available on the internet right now, but ideally kind of honing in on how that benefits camps directly. So rainwater barrel are a really good starting point. I think it's very simple. As Avi said, you can find reclaimed barrels. You can get simple tools from hardware stores to build those barrels. Simple connectors from the hardware store as well. You need to have some type of a rain gutter system on the roof of the building to collect that water. And depending on having screens and being able to siphon out that water and your usage for it, there's a lot of options on that. So being able to research and see which option fits your facility best. There's lots of, again, different techniques. There's do-it-yourself guides as well as bigger industrial systems. There's underground systems that you can use for water collection. And a lot of it, the other part of it is looking at your roof space of the building that you want to put that rainwater barrel on. For a smaller 50-gallon barrel, that'll fill up pretty quick on a smaller roof. But if you want to do a larger catchment system, you can actually calculate based on the square foot of the roof, the size of your gallon or the size of your tank, as well as the annual rainfall, how much water you're going to be collecting there. So just a few things on that. But yeah, rain barrels are great, and I think it's great how Conservation Generation incorporates the artistic part of it. So rather than just putting up a rain barrel, a black barrel or whatever it might be, they're able to add the artistic component into it and make it more of an educational component of their program. So using these sustainable initiatives as education tools really expands upon that value there. Any other comments on rain barrels? We have another question following up there. Great. So the next one, could you talk a little bit about landscape and irrigation? And landscape and irrigation are a really important point to consider when we look at rainfall. As the slide that Adrian shared with us about runoff and where our water is coming down. In order to really maximize our landscape, there's a lot of different options that we can incorporate. Bioswales are kind of like drainage irrigation ditches that, rather than just allowing the water where your water runs off to continue to run off and carry debris and things down through into rivers and streams and such, you can put in rocks and mulch and plants so that water is going to percolate down slowly as opposed to just running off through that drainage ditch, and it's going to resupply that aquifer down there. Other options are looking at, rather than just having concrete slabs, to be able to have permeable surfaces to incorporate so that the rain that does fall, again, the idea is and you might consider it stormwater management, to make sure that we are capturing as much of that water as possible to recharge our aquifers, to put that water down there as opposed to directing that water off. So using landscaping as a way to capture that water and mitigate the stormwater runoff that's happening from that. And irrigation as well, there's lots of different techniques for irrigation. You can do different emitters that will emit the appropriate amount of water for each type of plant and the planting zone that you're working in to make sure you get the correct and proper amount in there. And then one final note on landscaping as well, to jump back to that. is researching the native and local plants in your region that are going to be resistant to local features. So in Southern California, we do a lot of drought-tolerant plants that don't need much water, so that they're going to be able to thrive in that population, as opposed to bringing in plants that need more water to do that. Grasses, there's alternative grasses to our typical ones that receive a lot of water, so looking at some native and local grasses. And then in general, just looking at the idea of permaculture and how we plan out a space to make sure that everything is interacting. And edible landscape is another good opportunity as well. So taking a grass lawn and incorporating some of those principles of permaculture and incorporating edible landscape to make it, again, more of an educational opportunity and to make the most of that land space there. So.
Danny, I'd like to just follow
Yes.
up. Hello, everybody. I'm Joanne from Conservation Generation. There are two really great resources if you're interested in efficient landscaping. The first one is the Turfgrass Water Conservation Alliance, which is tgwca.org. If you're interested in replacing one grass that you have for a more efficient variety, they can help you select one. That's often a really good thing to do if there are areas where you have to have grass. So if you've got animals there or picnic spaces or something like that, there are actually more efficient grasses available. And the other one is if you Google EPA WaterSense, the Environmental Protection Agency actually has a labeling system for irrigation controllers. So if you have landscaping that actually requires sort of machinery and that sort of thing, then there are resources to help you select better systems. Denny, that was it. Go ahead.
Thank you for those resources, Joanne. And I think as well, as we get these questions, we'll be able to do more research and provide more specific resources like Joanne suggested in our follow-up. The next question is, would cutting down the willow trees growing along our creek increase the water flow? The creek feeds our lake, and the lake is low. Adrian, do you have any thoughts on this? I know kind of water replenishment. I have some thoughts, but I wanted to open it up to you first.
Cool. Could you repeat that question? Sorry, I missed that one.
So the question was, would cutting down willow trees growing along our creek increase the water flow? The creek feeds our lake, and the lake is low. And this is a camp in Southern California here.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I don't know specifically about the willow, that particular plant, but I do know in Southern California we have an issue with our aqueducts on palm trees, and the palm trees typically line a lot of our wild areas near our aqueducts, and they do use a significant amount of water that affects our flow. So I would say, depending on the type of plant that we're talking about, that would probably have an impact. There's also, the trees are integral to the overall ecology, so in removing a tree, you're not just thinking about how much water goes in, but then the stability of the soil and the local flora and fauna that rely on that tree. So I don't think there's an easy answer for you. I'm sorry, I can't give you an easy answer, but it's a great question, and it would probably increase the amount of water going in, but it would have other consequences as well.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think that erosion would be my main concern. That if we're losing the roots that are holding the soil in place, erosion, and then if erosion is causing to go into the river, there's more sediment, and so it is a challenge. It's a constant balance to look for solutions to those problems, but also understand that sometimes those solutions might integrate additional challenges. So really thinking critically and stepping back from that. So next question, a Girl Scout camp in Washington State. Would like to get rain barrels. How do I get started with this project? There's lots of resources. I would start with an online search, and I think since we have had so much interest in rain barrels, that we will send some more specific resources as a follow-up. But just looking at your camp, looking at the location and understanding where you want to put that, the potential size for the system that you'll be able to put in there would be really some information to start gathering. And again, being in Washington State, you do have a high rainfall, so you are going to be able to catch quite a bit of rain, so considering that. So a note on the rain barrels can be used for supplement irrigation systems to be able to incorporate that. So rain barrels can catch that water and then be set up into an irrigation system to add to that. Here's I believe a comment. We are on a lake and are going to pump lake water for toilet use, and we use waterless urinals. The water source is an artesian well producing 22 gallons per minute. And a lot of camps are on well water as well, which is another interesting perspective to look at the water issues. That, you know, if we're running on a pump, or if we're running on our well water, and we're not necessarily dependent on the city water, municipal water, we don't have to pay for that. You're not paying for that out of pocket. So understanding the impact of pulling well water as well, and the importance of continuing to use water efficiency techniques there. Let's see. Here's a question. What do you do with the collected water? With the rain barrels, I think Adrienne had mentioned earlier that collected water for rain barrels can be used for irrigation. If you have a smaller system, the amount of irrigation that you're going to do large scale is probably going to be pretty limited. And I encourage, again, with a smaller system, to use it as an educational component. So maybe you have a small garden. Avi had mentioned the rain wall, which incorporates small plants on the wall, and then using that water collected to water that small area. Avi or Joanne, Adrienne, do you have any other comments on how to use collected water through rain barrels?
One of the things that you could do as well is to fix a rain barrel next to a greenhouse, which you could make out of discarded plastic bottles. I know that that's one thing that you can do: collect all plastic bottles, water bottles that you use, and turn them into a greenhouse and feed water via a rain barrel through that. I know that's one of the projects that one of our camps is going to do. And again, we'll post something up about creating a greenhouse out of recycled bottles. It's very easy to do.
I would just add to that, Danny, that you can use rainwater for pretty much anything. If you're washing bicycles or canoes or even paint jars, it's probably easier to say what you shouldn't use it for. And really, you should be careful if you're going to be using it for food growing. You want to be certain that wherever you're collecting the water from isn't contaminated with a lot of animal droppings, for example. And then you don't want to be putting that directly on tomatoes, which then somebody might eat because that's potentially not safe. And also you shouldn't ever drink it either. But pretty much those two things, any other way that you can use it is usually totally fine.
Absolutely. Great. And a follow-up while we're on rain barrels as well. Do rain barrels require a lot of attention throughout the year? And we had an answer from one of our participants that said, I had a rain barrel for years. Mostly it needs to be drained before winter if you're in a place that freezes. It's also important to have filters at the inlets and outlets to keep critters and debris out of the rain barrel. And this Amanda purchased hers for $40 from the local Department of Public Works. And yeah, I think they are pretty relatively low maintenance. I think the seasonal part of it with winters is something to consider. But for the most part, they're pretty simple going. And other comments on the maintenance for water for rain barrels? Okay. Another question about resources for native plants in Southern California. There are some, I don't have the website offhand, I'll do a little research and follow up with that, but a simple Google search for native plants within whatever region you're in, there's a vast amount of resources for that, and so definitely look into what those native plants are. There's also a lot of native plant nurseries where you can go in and they have the nursery set up in a way that you can see what plants do best in full sun versus partial sun, and the nursery attendants are really, really good to help you pick through all those options and figure out what's best for you there. Great. It looks like Adrian, he's still with us, I believe, but he said he's going to hop off here. Well, thank you very much to Adrian for participating with us today. We're very grateful for the information that you provided, and wonderful to have another resource for the camp community. Adrian did provide his contact information. We'll follow up with that, so if folks have additional questions to direct to Adrian or any of the other presenters, you can reach him. Great. And it looks like that's about the end of our questions. I would like to give the opportunity, if anyone has any additional questions, to go ahead and send those in. Otherwise, I'm going to close out the webinar and we'll, again, give folks a minute or two. Again, a big thank you to Joanne and Avi from Conservation Generation. Very excited to be partnering with these organizations and bringing these resources to the camp community. I know that when I first started researching into sustainable camp development, there were not very many resources out there. And so the objective of GCI to bring organizations and resources together, you know, we're finding ways that we can partner and doing these type of webinars and additional educational opportunities, we think is really going to be of value for the camp community and in turn for the rest of the society, because the camp community statistic from the ACA impacts more than 6.9 million learners every year. So we're excited to share that information. Any final comments from Adrian, Avi, or Joanne?
No, just thank you very much, and let us know, email us if we can help you at all, whether it's with where to get rain barrels from, how to paint rain barrels, programs, whatever. We're delighted to help, and thank you guys very much for all the work that you're all doing in camp, because it's terrific.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. A happy Earth Day. Please do send out any social media posts to help advocate for this webinar. And we'll follow up soon with a recording, that exit survey, and additional information. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and happy Earth Day again. Bye-bye.